Welcome to the Tech Talks Daily Podcast, where you can learn and be inspired by real-world examples of how technology is transforming businesses and reshaping industries in a language everyone can understand. Here is your host, Neil C. Hughes.
Welcome back to the Tech Talks Daily Podcast, where every day I try to get you thinking about an industry and the impacts that technology is having on it in ways that you might not have considered before. For example, let's take a look at Hollywood. With all those big budget movies and high-tech CGI blockbusters, you might think that they are a shining example of how an industry has embraced technology. But in fact, if you take a look behind that curtain, Hollywood is actually clunky and slow to adapt to change, and nowhere is this more evident than in the IP acquisition process. For example, if you try to imagine the next big TV show or movie that you're going to watch tonight, it would have begun life as a pitch. But where do those ideas all come from? Now, I recently learned that around 50% of all entertainment is based on existing IP, and by that I mean novels, articles, biographies, memoirs, etc. And that number is even closer to 80% in television. And yet, the process of finding and buying the rights is still quite analogue and outdated, where a person would have to find the source and then go on a mission, spending weeks or even months identifying the various rights holders and then negotiating the options rights. And it was at this point that I came across Story Scout, and that is essentially an online marketplace that curates IP, pre-negotiates all the rights, and allows studios and independent producers to find and option ideas all at the click of a button with everything in one place. And Story Scout is an immediate marketplace where they do all the finding of cool stories, and they clear the rights for their customers because they represent everything on there and negotiate it for you. So in a nutshell, they are Amazon for cool ideas, said Todd Hoffman, CEO of Story Scout. And they're also working with current subscribers, including big names such as Sony Television, New Line and Range Media, and they also have their site set on all of the biggest names in entertainment that you can think of. So upon reading this, I invited Todd onto the podcast to find out more about this kind of tech, which is hyper-focused on meeting Hollywood's needs. So buckle up and hold on tight as I beam your ears all the way to California, where Todd Hoffman is waiting to speak with us now. So a massive warm welcome to the show. Can you tell the listeners a little about who you are and what you do?
Sure. My name is Todd Hoffman, and I'm the founder and CEO of Storied Media Group here in Santa Monica, California. And I'm the creator of this new product that we've got called Story Scout. And I've been in this wonderful business of TV and film for 25 years now. First as an independent producer, then 13 years as a literary agent at ICM. And for the past 7 years, I've been building Storied Media Group.
It's incredibly cool what you're doing here. But like you said, you are a 25-year veteran of studio and independent filmmaking and film and television agenting. But I'm curious, when did the worlds of Hollywood and technology collide for you? Is there anything that you can remember that particularly put you on the path that you're on today?
Well, first of all, I think my family would tell you that it's incredibly ironic that technology plays any part in my career, because I'm not exactly Mr. Tech guy. Yeah. But, technology has the power to change old ways of doing things. As the head of the media rights division at ICM, where I worked, I was confronted with a certain way Hollywood was transacting in the IP space. And the reason they did it in this old horse and buggy fashion was because that's the way they always did it. That was the only reason. And I had this idea that if given an opportunity to essentially democratize the flow of curated and available IP, people might be excited. And the path to my business, I'd say, was born out of necessity. After I was doing my thing here at Storied, and after 3 years of curating and selling our IP, the business was growing, and the pace of the good articles and stories just kept coming in, and it became unwieldy. We say kind of like that I Love Lucy episode at the chocolate factory. So we eventually built a simple database to house the articles that we loved. And then we started tagging them with Hollywood focused meta tags to make search easy. And sometime around then, like 3 years ago, I got the idea that perhaps a tool like this could actually make people's lives incredibly easy in development. And then I went and I spoke to a lot of people about whether or not they thought something like this would be valuable. And everyone said yes. And oh my God, where can I buy that? And 1 year later, Story Scout was born.
And we will have people listening all over the world to our conversation today. And I suspect that many people will, when they think of Hollywood, they think of it as at the cutting edge of technology. But can you tell me more about how it's actually quite clunky and even slow to change? Is that right?
It's incredibly right. Hollywood has historically been very slow to embrace change. But, there's also something really nice about that, too. Yeah. It's much of Hollywood business is still done based on one's word, believe it or not. And, often the way we transact is very casual. People's words still mean something, and deals can still be done on napkins, and a handshake is still meaningful, or an elbow bump, I guess you'd say now. But on the cutting edge of technology, we are not. Change is very difficult, especially in a creative business. People are slow to embrace change, even if it makes their lives easier. And that's one of the things that we've discovered.
So this feels like a perfect opportunity to introduce everyone listening to Story Scout. So what is Story Scout, and what kind of problems did you set out to solve from the outset?
So Story Scout is a new online one-stop marketplace that connects premium IP creators and owners like the Washington Post, NPR, News UK, USA Today, La Repubblica, The Guardian, with film and TV producers, networks, studios, and streamers all looking for IP to develop. And we exclusively represent, we curate, and we broker the rights for all of them, which is now more than 1,100 publications around the world. And that now includes graphic novels, comic books, fiction, and video games. And we set out to solve there are multiple problems that executives and creatives encounter in the upstream development process. First off, studios and networks need a consistent flow of unique stories to develop. TV shows and movies are going through the roof. There are new offerings every day, and everyone is clamoring for new and original and borderless ideas. But sourcing the quality content is really time consuming, and the sources for stories are really fragmented. So through automation and our ongoing personal servicing, you now never miss a story you might want because you've asked Story Scout to be on the lookout for it. Second, the search for who reps what is incredibly time consuming, and in many cases a race to see who gets there to buy it first. And finally, negotiating rights is complex and frustrating, and we make that really, really easy. So we've really tried to make the entire process from original ideation all the way through transaction super simple.
And just to bring to life some of the things that we're talking about here, especially for people listening both in and outside of the entertainment industry, do you have a use case or a particular client story that would just help listeners understand how it would work?
Sure. There's one that I love. There was this incredible story that we found from our client, the South China Morning Post in Hong Kong. And it was called, I Don't Care What Others Think. And it was this heartwarming story about a 31-year-old mother of two from a southern province in China who missed out on an education when she was a kid. And then when her kid was 5, she decided to rectify that by enrolling in kindergarten with her. And now the two go to school every day and learn together. So it immediately caught our attention, gave us chills. We thought it was so wonderful and definitely a movie or even a TV series. So we put it out onto Story Scout, and we were right. Within an hour, we had several companies interested. Some were producers, others were studios. And within a few days, we had a few studio offers. And so then we discussed the different offers, which studios, which producers, with the South China Morning Post. And then ultimately they decided to go with Disney. And so we closed the deal there. And now the project is in development, and hopefully we'll see it soon on Disney Plus.
Wow, what an incredibly cool story. So powerful as well. And just to put into perspective what we're talking about here, I read that your current subscribers include the likes of Sony Television, New Line and Range Media. And you're also setting your sights on deals with Netflix, Hulu, Amazon, Warner Brothers, NBC, Paramount, HBO. And the list goes on and on. But what are your biggest challenges in increasing adoption of your technology? Because you do have a long career in the industry, so you must have a lot of contacts. But what kind of challenges are you facing there?
Well, we certainly want to sign up everybody in the world eventually. And right now we have 24 companies on it and more than 1,000 people that are working with Story Scout every day. And yeah, we definitely want everybody in the world that's in the business of creating movies and TV and even podcasts to work with Story Scout. We also just signed the studio and management company Anonymous Content, and we're also signing our first agency, Paradigm. So, in terms of the challenges in adoption, I think anytime you try to disrupt a marketplace, the biggest challenge comes in trying to convince people that they need something that they've done okay without. And, that's what happened with the automobile and disposable tissues and Uber. So that's the first challenge, especially with tight development budgets. But the good news for us is that once people see Story Scout and they realize how much it can help their bottom line, adoption comes pretty quickly. Not overnight, but it seems to be coming. Sony TV, for example, was our first studio to sign up, and we started working with them. And in the first year, they bought 15 projects, and they renewed their subscription within 6 months. So it's a great use case. And now we're talking with them about a 3-year extension. So I'd say really the biggest challenge that we face right now is just company bandwidth. We're still a very small group, and we need to expand our sales group.
And I'm talking to you today, 5,500 miles away in the UK, a long way from Hollywood. But it does feel that this kind of tech is hyper-focused and focusing directly on Hollywood's needs right now. I'm curious, is there anything else out there offering anything remotely similar to what you're doing?
Well, the good news is there's nothing like this in the marketplace at present. But we're not taking that for granted, for sure. We're continuing to innovate the business and sign more publishing partnership deals. And, right now, Story Scout is hyper-focused on the needs of content providers. But what's interesting is we've aggregated this unique group of publishers from around the world, and we're curating their content every day. So we're already looking into potential applications for other verticals as well. And, it'd be great to find more ways to bring them needed revenue.
And where do you go from here? Is there anything you can share about your grand vision and what kind of other opportunities you might see on the road ahead too?
Well, we're in rapid growth mode right now. The marketplace is working, the product is working. So it's just about getting to scale in Hollywood now as quickly as possible, and then the rest of the world. So I think one thing that's frankly, unique, maybe not so unique about Hollywood, is this fear of missing out. That factor runs rampant. And so the more anecdotal stories that we have, the better about success with Story Scout. And I just think that it was an innovation in Hollywood whose time has come. And also we made the price point really easy to join. So it's not prohibitive. And then we get started, and then hopefully we have more anecdotal stories.
Well, it's such a powerful story, what you've got here. And it's one that I'm going to be following very closely. And I'd love to get you on towards the end of the year and find out how that journey's going. But I'm going to throw you a slight curveball here, because a question I always like to ask my guests is if there was a particular song that has inspired them throughout their career or accompanied them on their career. In your world, it could well be a musical score from the likes of John Williams or Hans Zimmer. I don't know. But is there anything that springs to mind, whether it's before you try and land a big meeting or deliver a keynote? Is there anything that springs to mind there?
Wow, that's a great question. There's this amazing song called "Whatever It Takes" by Imagine Dragons that I love, and it's probably not written intentionally as a song about entrepreneurialism and disruption in Hollywood, but I've listened to it a lot in the past few years, and when I listen to it, I really just get pumped up. It's just an honest, inspirational song about intentionality, and I just love it. Great
Excellent choice. Yeah, great tune there. And I'll be adding that to the Spotify playlist where every guest will send their song. But before I let you go, for anyone listening, wherever they are in the world, if they want to find out more information about everything that you're doing here and contact your team if they've got any questions and carry that conversation on, where's the best place to go?
Sure. Yeah. You can find us at storyscout.com or at storymediagroup.com. And if you want to email us, you can do so at help@storyscout.com.
Well, I meant what I said a few moments ago. I'd love to get you on again towards the end of the year and find out how this story continues to evolve. And yeah, man, let's do that. But more than anything, just a big thank you for taking the time to sit down with me today and share that story. Thank you.
Oh, I really appreciate it. I mean, this is a great podcast that you run, and it's great for entrepreneurs to listen to other stories, and for young people coming up too. So I think it's just great. Thanks again.
Todd and his colleagues all come from Hollywood, and they know firsthand that studios are looking for super specific tagging. For example, they may arrive in the office in the morning and think, I need a story that's set in Latin America, that is family friendly and quirky, and are about to divorce. Because that is what the next film or TV worthy story is that they're searching for. So then they need to go out there and find possibly a real story that would just inspire them. And after recording today's episode, Todd walked me through how it all works and how they're engineering machine learning tools to help anyone filter the most interesting and relevant ideas that then become the stories that we love. And for me, it really feels like a huge business opportunity, especially with just about every network launching a streaming service, and there is this voracious appetite for new content with, I think, over 700 new TV shows launched last year alone. And in order to launch even one show, it typically takes 80 plus story ideas at the top of the funnel. So having seen how with Story Scout, the industry can have one place that allows them to drill down on the exact ideas that they're searching for, it just felt like a real game changer for me. But obviously, I don't work in Hollywood. So if you work in the entertainment industry, I'd love to hear your thoughts on all the problems that we talked about today, the solution, and your experiences, your insights. And to share that with me, all you need to do is email me, techblogwriter@outlook.com, tweet me at Neil C. Hughes, and my website is techblogwriter.co.uk, where you'll find over 1,600 other interviews, as well as podcasts I host with Citrix and Netgear too. But that's a wrap, I'm afraid. I'll return again tomorrow with another guest in your podcast feed, but just a big thank you for listening, and until next time, don't be a stranger.
Thank you for listening to the Tech Talks Daily Podcast with Neil C. Hughes. Remember, technology works best when it brings people together.